Imagine you are a 12-year-old boy swimming in the crystal clear blue water of the Bay of Naples in the year 34 AD. The Mediterranean sun warms your back as you dive for seashells, your lungs burning as you hold your breath longer and longer, competing with your younger brother to see who can stay underwater the longest. Your father watches proudly from the boat as you surface with a handful of perfect seashells, your black hair slicked back and your chest heaving. This is your world, simple, authentic, filled with laughter and the endless rhythm of the waves. Then you see them, 3 imperial warships tearing through the water like knives, their purple sails bearing the golden eagle insignia of Rome. Your father's face turns as white as a sheet. Everyone in your village knows what those ships mean. Emperor Tiberius is collecting people again. What you don't know is that your extraordinary swimming ability has just sealed your fate. The soldiers have been watching you for weeks, taking notes on how long you can hold your breath, how gracefully you move in the water. You don't know that tomorrow you will wake up in a marble room on a remote island, surrounded by other boys who once had families, who once had names. You don't know that your swimming skill will become the instrument of your own destruction. Emperor Tiberius Julius Caesar Augustus was not born a monster. When he ascended the throne in 14 AD, the Romans believed they were witnessing a golden age. He was an intelligent, experienced, and loyal man, but absolute power reveals the darkness in even the most promising of souls, and by 30 AD, something fundamental had shattered inside the emperor's mind. The transformation began when Tiberius left Rome for good, retreating to Capri with a small group of servants. Officially, this retreat was temporary, a chance to recover his health. In reality, it was the beginning of the most systematic program of child abuse in history, carried out in marble palaces surrounded by azure waters that had become a hell on earth. Capri was perfect for Tiberius's dark transformation. The island was 12 miles off the coast of Italy, surrounded by treacherous currents and towering cliffs that made escape impossible. Ships could only approach in calm weather, and every vessel was watched by imperial guards. What happened on Capri stayed on Capri. The emperor's villa complex covered most of the island's highest plateau, a sprawling collection of rooms, gardens, and most importantly, private pools carved directly into the living rock. These were not simple bathing facilities, they were feats of engineering designed to facilitate activities that the architects understood but never discussed. The pools varied in depth and temperature, some shallow enough for a child to stand, others deep enough for prolonged underwater activities. Underground chambers connected them, creating underwater spaces where screams could not escape the marble walls. But here's the part that will make you shudder. This was no random cruelty. This was systematic, calculated, industrial-scale child abuse disguised as royal privilege. The emperor discovered that he particularly enjoyed having boys perform intimate acts on him while he bathed, especially boys who could hold their breath underwater for long periods of time. What began as an occasional indulgence grew into an obsession that consumed countless resources and countless young lives. The selection process was methodical and horrifying. Selection. Imperial agents roamed coastal areas, ostensibly on administrative duty, but in reality looking for boys with exceptional swimming abilities. They watched fishing villages and harbors, noting children who spent hours in the water. Criteria. Specifically, boys aged 8 to 14, physically attractive, able to hold their breath for at least 2 minutes. Those who met this requirement were added to a special list, which was sent directly to Capri. Collection. The collection process took place in a process that spanned dozens of coastal communities. Royal ships arrived unexpectedly, their crews, armed with official documents allowing them to requisition children for royal service. Parents who resisted faced immediate arrest or execution. Those who cooperated received small payments that paled in comparison to the loss of their children. Testing. Soldiers examined the boys like slave traders, testing their reflexes, teeth, and how long they could hold their breath underwater. When you can stay underwater for nearly 3 minutes to retrieve a coin from the bottom, their smiles become genuine, and you know you're exactly what they've been looking for. The journey to Capri takes 2 days on ships equipped to transport children. You're crammed into the hold with dozens of other boys, all wearing the same look of bewilderment and fear. Some cry constantly, others sit silently in a daze. The first sight of Capri should be beautiful. The island rises like an emerald, its cliffs dotted with sparkling villas. But as your ship approaches, you notice details that turn wonder into fear. The docks are heavily guarded. Watchtowers watch every approach. No ships other than the Rorals. When you arrive, you undergo a second, more thorough selection. Royal physicians examine each boy, testing his swimming ability, endurance, breathing control, and fitness for specialized service. Those who passed were given clean robes and escorted to the villa. Those who failed to meet the requirements simply disappear, and their screams are never heard again. The villa complex becomes your prison, a masterpiece of perverted architecture, where every detail is designed to accommodate the emperor's desires while maintaining royal splendor. You are housed in dormitories near the main pool area, marble-floored, rooms with narrow beds that would have been comfortable under other circumstances, but nothing can prepare you for what comes next. Training begins immediately. You are instructed by Marcus, a boy who claims to be 15, but whose eyes reveal decades of experience. Marcus has survived 3 years on Capri by developing the supernatural ability to predict the emperor's desires. The pools are engineering, marvels perverted into instruments of abuse. The main bathing area features connected pools of varying depths, with underwater walkways that allow swimmers to move between them without surfacing. The water is kept at a controlled temperature, warm enough to be comfortable, but not so hot as to cause the fatigue required for prolonged underwater activities. But the specialized training reveals the real purpose. You are taught to hold your breath for longer and longer periods, eventually reaching 5 minutes of continuous diving. You learn to swim silently, moving without making a splash that would upset the emperor. Most horrifyingly, you are instructed in techniques that no child should know. How to use your mouth and hands underwater for purposes you are too young to understand. The innocence of childhood is surgically removed from your soul. Lesson by lesson, the first time you are summoned to serve personally, you think you might die of fear. Tiberius reclines on a marble platform that juts out into the main pool, his aged body supported by silk pillows as steam rises from the hot water. He looks like a spider bloated in an intricate web, his eyes calculating and predatory as they survey the boys chosen for his afternoon entertainment. The emperor speaks in a cultured, gentle voice, almost grandfatherly, as he explains what he expects from his little fish. He had to swim in patterns around his body, sinking, diving, and rising rhythmically as he bathed. Sometimes he gave specific instructions, asking you to swim closer, to use your hands or mouth in ways that felt wrong, but you dared not refuse. Your childhood is sinking into those marble pools, breath by breath. The psychological manipulation was systematic and ruthless. Tiberius had perfected techniques to break the minds of young children, replacing natural disgust with desperate gratitude for approval. Boys who performed well were treated better, receiving better food, warmer clothes, and precious praise in your isolated world. Those who show reluctance face punishments ranging from reduced rations to complete isolation in underground chambers where dripping water becomes torture. What makes this abuse particularly sinister is its integration into the wider royal service, which seems almost normal. You have lessons in reading, writing, instruction in literature, training in crafts that might otherwise be considered education. The other boys represent every stage of the systematic destruction of innocence. Newcomers constantly appear, their horrors reminding you of what you have been through. Veterans like Marcus navigate the system with calculated efficiency, trading soul fragments for survival advantages. Those who have been broken have their minds retreated into protective shells that make them barely human. Lucius, a boy who has been on Capri for 4 years, when you arrive, barely speaks anymore. During your second month, you watched him simply stop eating, refusing food until his body gave out. The other boys understood this as an escape. Perhaps the only escape for those who could not endure anymore. Death became a mercy in Tiberius's paradise. Over time, you came to understand the complete system Tiberius had created. The villa was more than a resort or a pleasure palace. It was a carefully designed machine for systematic child abuse, as efficient as any imperial institution. The emperor kept detailed records of his little fish, recording their physical development, swimming ability, and what he called their service aptitude. These records, written by those who had graduated the program years earlier, followed each boy from arrival to disposal. You realize with growing horror that you are not just a victim, but also an entry into an administrative system and a pet, a human stock, a breathing toy in the emperor's collection. The emperor is rapidly weakening, his body failing even as his desires persist. Tiberius has developed skin diseases that make physical contact painful, respiratory problems that limit his time in the thermal pools, digestive problems that leave him weak and irritable. But rather than lessening his demands on the boys, these health problems seem to have intensified his need for the activities that defined his years on Capri. Marcus, your mentor and protector, finally reached his breaking point in the spring of your third year. He had survived longer than most of the other boys, using his wits and adaptability to get through 5 years of systematic abuse. But something broke when he was forced to participate in a particularly brutal service involving several boys that lasted nearly an entire day. That night, he escaped and threw himself from the cliffs surrounding the villa. His death marked a turning point in your psychological development. You realized that survival wasn't really survival if it meant becoming something less than human. What makes this story so chilling is how detailed Roman historians recorded it. After witnessing the aftermath of Tiberius' reign, Suetonius, writing in his Lives of the 12 Caesars, provided a detailed account of what he found on Capri after the emperor's death. His descriptions, though sometimes understated, leave no doubt that systematic abuses occurred there. Suetonius recorded secret debauchery parties and perverted sexual acts involving little boys whom Tiberius called his little fishes. He also recorded that Tiberius trained little boys, whom he called his little fishes, to crawl between his thighs as he swam and tease him with licks and gentle bites. He even took unweaned infants from their mother's breasts to suck his genitals. These were not inventions invented centuries later. These are contemporary accounts from respected chroniclers who had access to eyewitness accounts, official records, and physical evidence from Capri itself. The villa complex still exists today, and visitors can see the pools and chambers where these activities took place, although guides rarely mention their original purpose. When Tiberius died in 37 AD, possibly murdered by his own Praetorian Guard commander, the villa was immediately sealed and its secrets buried. The surviving boys found themselves in unthinkable situations, witnesses to crimes no one wanted to admit, trained for purposes that made them unfit for normal life, psychologically damaged in ways that never healed. Some were quietly transferred to other facilities, their fates unrecorded. Others simply disappeared, perhaps killed to prevent embarrassing stories. Your fate, like most of Tiberius's little fish, remains unknown to history. You exist only as a representation of the countless children who suffered and died to satisfy one man's perverted desires. Pools of Capri still reflect the Mediterranean sun, their marble surfaces now welcoming tourists to admire Roman engineering and art. But the water remembers what history would rather forget: the cries of children who were never allowed to surface again, the desperate gasps of boys who learned to hold their breath until their lungs burned, the splashes of tiny bodies discarded when they were no longer useful. In the end, Tiberius's legacy is more than the political and military achievements that fill the history books. It is the systematic destruction of innocent lives, the transformation of royal power into a machine for the consumption of children, and a reminder that absolute power can corrupt even civilized societies in unimaginable ways. The boy collecting seashells in the Bay of Naples deserved a better fate than to become a footnote in the fantasies of a dying emperor. But history rarely protects the innocent from the desires of the powerful. That island paradise became a monument to human cruelty, and the little fish swam in a lake of their own tears until the day they stopped swimming altogether. If this glimpse of the darkness hidden in history has made you want to explore more buried truths, I have prepared another journey into the darkness of the past that you will not want to miss. Click on the video that appears on your screen now to discover another shocking chapter that history has tried to erase. And if you find this exploration as compelling as I do, please hit that subscribe button so we can continue peeling back the layers of history together. These forgotten voices deserve to be heard, and there are many more stories waiting to be told.